Hey, what's up everyone? My name's William, and today we're going to be going over the pitch effects that are included in Logic. So first of all, what I've done is I've opened up a new session and set up some audio tracks, one without any effects, and then each of the remaining 3 tracks with one of the pitch effects that we're going to be covering. I'm using the Carla Lyric 02 audio file. I just found that in Apple Loops. I went over to Apple Loops, just searched for vocals, and it's the third one that I found. So jumping right in, first, before we cover any of the effects, let's listen to what this vocal sounds like, dry without any effects on it.
Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Oh.
Okay, so that's the sample we're going to be working with, and we're going to just jump right in and get into the pitch correction effect first. So I've loaded up pitch correction on this track. I haven't done anything to it, just to make sure. I'll set it back to the default settings. So it looks a little complex. Basically what this is the goal of this effect is to try to make our vocal in tune with a scale, with a musical scale. You typically wouldn't really use this effect on short samples like this. You would probably more so use this with a full track if it needed some touch up, needed some help, and of course if you didn't have anything else, because this effect can get the job done. It can do some fixes, but this, I wouldn't say this is typically used for when you're going in depth with vocal. It's definitely better than nothing, of course. So first, going over some of the parameters. The main thing when it comes to this effect here is our root and our scale. This determines what root note and the scale that it's going to be following for trying to correct our vocal. We can see over here that our scale is C. So I'm just going to change the root note. I got to change it from chromatic first. I got to change the root note to C. So we're going to go with the C major scale. Next, down here, these are just all of the keys. The highlighted ones are the ones that it's going to be using for the scale. As you can see, when I click and modify, I can do any combination of notes if I wanted to. Obviously, it might not sound right if it's not a musical scale, but you can do that if you want. And it changed to user scale when I was clicking those. So that's just an easy visual representation of the scale. While you're changing the root note in the scale. Next on this area here, we have the bypass buttons everywhere. We have 5 on the top. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the bottom. It's just an entire octave of notes. And what we can do is we can actually bypass some of these notes if we wanted to. And what that is telling the effect is it's saying anything that lands on this note, don't try to correct it. We're going to bypass that C note. Things like that. And there's also a bypass all button. But that essentially would do, turn off the effect essentially. So that's a quick overview of what those do. Next, we have the show input or show output. That's just when we're playing this vocal, it will either show what's being input by the vocal or what's being output after it's getting corrected. It's just a simple visual display. It doesn't change what's actually happening. It just is a visual representation for us. Next, over here, we have the range. This determines what type of notes it's looking for. For this, I would set it to normal range. If it's a lower, range of notes, then we'd set it to low. If it's, someone that has a deeper voice or something like that, we'd set it to low. Next, we have this global tuning button. Typically, you honestly just want to leave this on. All it does is it just uses the global tuning of the track to try to find the root of the vocals. If for some reason it's slightly off, if the whole vocal is slightly detuned or something, you can change the reference pitch by sense, if you really need to fine tune that. But honestly, most of the time, just using global tuning is perfectly fine. So if you're a little confused about that, you shouldn't have to worry about it too much. The last two parameters are the response and detune. Response just determines how fast the correction is going to be happening. When you're down here, it gets really weird because it's instantly jumping around to the different notes. And then detune is just a simple detune by sense if you want to detune the vocal slightly. And lastly, we have this visual bar down here that shows us how much it's being corrected in cents. If the vocal is being corrected by 40 cents, 20 cents, and which direction. So now that I've, kind of explained what everything means in a quick rundown, let's just play this vocal and see what happens when it's set to the C major scale.
Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Oh.
Now without it.
Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Oh.
So it's not a huge difference. Some of the notes went to the sharp, A sharp and G sharp. I saw when we were looking at the inputs, and we can adjust the response and whatnot to make it more in the C major scale. So those sharps go down to just G or A. Oh, excuse me. So let's just play that again, see what it sounds like.
Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Oh. Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Oh.
So the one part I want to focus on real quick is that last, that last part of the sample. So I'm going to turn it off, hear what it sounds like.
Oh.
Turn it on.
Oh.
It's a very slight difference. You can hardly hear the difference. But just to show you in a more dramatic way, this is something that I would never do. It seems like a lot of them are landing around the A note. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the root note to A, and I'm going to scroll all the way down to single. So now everything is going to be trying to correct to the A note. Of course, for this is not the correct, settings that we'd want to be using, but this is just to give you an easier representation of what this is actually doing. Because when it comes to pitch correction, it doesn't want to be too noticeable, and by that I mean you don't want to be able to hear, the pitch correcting abruptly changing the note from like an A sharp to an A. You want it to be smooth, but still have that correction there. And that's, where a lot of the magic comes to messing with this response time, messing with how fast or how slow it's correcting. So just to give us an easier, representation of what's happening with this effect, we're going to try to correct everything to the A note. Again, obviously that's not correct, and I'll even turn it all the way down at a part when we go over it, just so we could really hear what it's doing and how weird it gets when we turn this response time to 0 milliseconds.
Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Oh.
So you could hear that it sounded quite weird because it was doing such drastic changes, and you could turn it down all the way and it'll get really crazy.
Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Oh.
Obviously, that's not the proper way to use a pitch correction. If we really wanted to, for some reason, try to get everything to A, what we'd do is we'd probably do a slower one because obviously there's going to be such drastic changes. So I'm going to mess with that and see if I can get something a little bit smoother.
Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Oh.
Around here.
Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Oh.
it's not quite there, but I think a slower response like that is a little bit better. Again, you don't want it to be too drastic, jumping around like we had when it was shorter. But that's about it for the pitch correction effect. It's definitely a cool tool to use, especially if you don't have any type of other third-party pitch correction. It's definitely very useful to try and experiment with if your vocals are a little off tune. All right, so moving on, next we're going to be going over the pitch shifter, which the pitch shifter is very simple, actually. It's not complex at all, in my opinion. So simply, let's listen to the dry vocal again before we get into it.
Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Oh.
So with this pitch shifter, that was the dry vocal. I'm going to turn this on. All this is it's literally what the title says. We just shift the pitch by a certain amount of semitones or cents, and then we have a mix here, which determines how much of the affected signal we want to hear. If you want to do it with kind of like, a layer, we could do, a small, like 25%, like the factory default. Or if we just want to hear our differences that are being made, I'm going to crank it all the way up to 100%. And then lastly, we have these 3 buttons here, which they just determine the kind of algorithm that it's using to affect the audio signal. If it's a vocal that's singing, which I would use that for this, audio sample that we have here. You just click on the vocals. If you have something that's more spoken, you can click speech, and if there's some kind of drums that you're changing the pitch of, you can use the drum setting. And this is nothing more than changing the back end of how this effect works. If it's really just messing with the different things. It doesn't change much. It's just it affects it's better to use pitch shifter in drums mode if you're using the pitch shifter to affect some tom drums or something. But I think you get the point of that. So let's just move on. I'm going to slowly turn up the semitones as it's going. I have the mix all the way up. So let's just hear what this pitch shifter does.
Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up.
So, you could hear as I turned it up all the way to 12 semitones, it obviously the pitch raised. And we can also turn it all the way down to 12 semitones.
Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Oh.
And then you get the finer detuning of where you can adjust cents as well, up or down 50 cents. That's it for the pitch shifter, though. It's very simple. It's just, if something's not right, or if you want to do a cool layer of like maybe an octave down, you could mix it in.
Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up.
Without it.
Get up, get up, get up, get up.
So you can kind of add like a cool layer to your vocals using the pitch shifter in that way. But that's about it for the pitch shifter. So we're going to be moving on lastly to the vocal transformer. So the vocal transformer actually has some similarities to the pitch shifter. You're able to switch the pitch and adjust it and change the dry, wet signal of the pitch that's being shifted, except there's a couple things that are different. One thing is the formant is separate. The formant is kind of, the timbre of the human vocal. So if we play this, I'm just going to affect the formant only, and we can hear what that does.
Get up, get up, get up, get up. Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Oh.
So the formant kind of changes the quality of the sound, whereas pitch still adjusts the pitch of the sound.
Get up, get up, get up, get up.
Although since they are separate, sometimes you can get a lot of artifacts if they're not, in sync. So that's one thing to be conscious of when adjusting the the pitch informant knobs on this vocal transformer. Another cool thing about this effect is it has this robot effect built into it, which we can click the robot button, and next thing we do is we adjust the pitch bass, the bass pitch of our sound. We're in the C major scale, so I'm going to assume that we're looking at a middle C.
Get up, get up,
Maybe C2.
get up, get up.
And what's happening here is these different values with this tracking knob actually determine which notes are being diminished and which notes are being augmented. So you can get some really interesting effects with this robot feature.
Get up, get up. 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 Get up, get up.
So you can get some really weird effects. Honestly, I've never been a huge fan of this just because all of the artifacts it tends to add to vocals. It's definitely something cool to mess with if you don't have, any other types of vocal effects, any other third-party vocal effects. It's definitely a weird effect that you can try out and add to your vocal. But honestly, in my opinion, if you're using any of these pitch effects, the main ones you're going to be using is the pitch correction and the pitch shifter effects. But that's about it for the pitch effects in general. The vocal transformer, there isn't much to it. It's just messing with the pitch formant, and then the robot effect that they have here, and of course the dry wet signal, which I didn't even touch, just because that's everyone should be familiar with that by now. So again, thank you for watching. I hope you learned something this lesson. My name is William. See you next time.